What's up? I tried to make this video outside, but it was freezing cold. I'm here in Mount Vernon, Illinois, which most of you know. I'm doing like I wouldn't say a camp, but I'm doing like a mini 2-week training, okay, we can call it a camp, at Pedigo before going to No-Gi Worlds. And I was watching a Caden Hensel video, Caden Hensel. I don't know. You guys probably know who he is. He's a wrestling vlogger, and he's been competing at a lot of opens, right? Lots of like college wrestling opens. And recently he won a open where he faced 3 Division I red shirts. And he talked about how difficult the matches were and how he was excited to go get the hard matches. The title of this video is something like, you're not a jiu-jitsu athlete if you don't do this, or you know, you need to do this if you consider yourself a jiu-jitsu athlete, something along the lines of that. Caden's video kind of inspired that, specifically because I hear a lot of people say, hey, I'm a jiu-jitsu athlete. Also, pause before we even get to the rest of the video. If you're someone who doesn't compete, doesn't ever plan on competing, doesn't care about competing, then for sure this video is not for you. But if you're someone who calls himself or herself an athlete, then this video is definitely for you. It's really easy to pretty much like rest on your laurels, right? Be like, all right, I did this tournament and that's it. I'm now an athlete because I did this one tournament and I did good at this tournament, or I participated in this tournament. Okay, you know what I mean? And then you just don't compete ever, you know? But the reality of things is, if you're an athlete, you have to be someone who's competing a ton. And I mean like a ton. Gordon Ryan talks about when by the time he was a purple belt, he already had like 200-300 matches, maybe more. And no one cares about his wins at purple belt. No one cares about his losses at purple belt. The big thing was, am I competing? Am I getting reps? Am I getting out of my comfort zone and doing something that sucks? Because a lot of times competing sucks. You know, it's fun, but it's extremely anxiety inducing. But it's important. The more you compete, the more you get used to it. The more you get used to winning, the more you get used to losing, the better it is. Again, the big purpose of this video is I see a lot of people say, I'm a jiu-jitsu athlete because they train every day during the week. Or maybe they train really hard, maybe they train twice a day, but they never compete. And then I've also, on the other end, I've heard people say, you know, I'm not gonna compete for free. Like, one of the issues with social media now, and I love Craig and his stuff, is like, people are like, I have to compete for money. But you're like, man, you haven't even won a local Naga yet. You're waiting to get invited to CJI. Like, come on, bro. You gotta compete. You gotta get your name out there through the lower level competitions, not just through Naga, but maybe IBJJF, ADCC trials, ADCC opens, etc., etc. And yeah, you have to pay for those things. Oh well. So did everyone else. You know, it's this weird standard where you're like, I'm an athlete, but I'm only gonna wait to compete for the stuff where I get paid. You're like, bro, come on. There's very few people who can always compete for free and get paid, you know? And most people are not at that level where they can do that. Lots of those people don't tell you. I mean, I think Craig has said it before. It's like someone like Craig, for example, competed a ton in the gi and no-gi before he became the Craig Jones that we know today. He paid for those things. He sacrificed a lot of money for those things. And of course, he knows how hard it is to get as good as he is. So I'm not dissing him or anything, but more or less, this isn't about him. It's about people's interpretation of the things that pro athletes say, like the pros that are like, you know what, I'm no longer going to compete for free. Yeah, those guys have the right to say that. But if you're like an up and coming athlete like me, like many of you, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You gotta invest in the travel. You got to invest in the competitions, win or lose. Like, I've heard people be like, man, I went 0-1 at my first 3 jiu-jitsu tournaments and I just lost like $150. Again, guys, I'm talking about jiu-jitsu athletes. If you're just some mom or dad who likes to, who wanted to try to compete for fun but didn't feel like that it was worth it, great. This is not about you. This is about people who call themselves jiu-jitsu athletes who, again, want to go to ADCC, want to go to CJI, etc., etc. But then they're like, no, I'm not paying. I'm just not paying to compete. If you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to get on those big cards. Max Hansen talked about it. Devontae Johnson talked about it recently at No-Gi Pants. They're like, I'm not waiting. Both of them essentially said, I'm not waiting for the opportunity to get put on these cards. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to put my name out there. And I'm going to earn my spot on these cards through these paid-to-play competitions. I'll call them that, like IBJJF, No-Gi Pants. I mean, it was an amazing tournament. It was super tough. Both of them are doing No-Gi Worlds. Again, super tough, and they're not getting paid to do it. But some people, most people, are not the 1%ers who just get invited to go on to Who's Number One or Fight Pass or Polaris or whatever. You know, there's a lot of nepotism when it comes to stuff like that. And if you're, how do I say this? If you're not a part of that, if you're not in the eyes of the promotion, you know, You're never gonna just get invited just because, right? It doesn't matter. It's just not gonna happen. What gets you invited to big stuff is you go compete a lot, you go pay to play, you go out there, you get your reps, you get better, and then eventually you start to build your brand, etc., and now you're getting invited to do stuff. But this is just a quick thought for the people who are like, man, why would I go to IBJJF? Why would I go to ADCC Opens? Why would I do any of these things? Because I have to pay for it. I have to pay for the travel. I have to pay for the food. I had to spend the time, etc., and I'm not getting any money if I win it. It's not about that. If you talk to any of the paid athletes right now, all of them paid for tournaments on their come up. Nicky Rod did ADCC trials multiple times. He did other random opens. He did IBJJF No-Gi Worlds at Blue Belt. J-Rod, same thing. It's you only get those paid to play, or yeah, you only get paid to play, you know, instead of pay to play. You only get paid to play after you've kind of built a name. And the biggest mistake I see people who want to call themselves athletes are they're afraid to go out to these smaller, I won't call them smaller, but like promotions where they're not getting paid. Because yes, the craziest thing about these promotions is you're not getting paid. You can lose and you can get highlight reeled. It's the reality. I face it. All the other people face it. But you got to get the experience. You got to put your name out there. You got to get your reps. And a lot of times you're going to face lots of the people that you would see at these paid professional promotions at these free ones, because they're doing exactly what I'm saying. They're trying to get reps, they're trying to get experience, and they're just trying to get better. So this was kind of a thought for today. Don't say you're a jiu-jitsu athlete if you don't ever compete. Don't be the up-and-comer who only sees like the headline saying, all right, I'm only going to compete for the $1 million tournament. You're probably not, especially if you don't ever build a name. You know, almost all the people that were at CJI were people who've competed at a ton of free things and got their name out there and then were invited because of their things, right? Like if you look at pretty much most of the roster, you'll be like IBJJF champion, ADCC trials champion, this or that champion. All of those champions from these organizations paid to go compete, to get those championships, to then get invited to something like CJI. It's very like immature or premature. It's a very immature thought, I'd say, to just think you're just gonna get invited to things just because, you know. Go out there, go compete, pay your dues, make the investment, wait for that investment to grow, and then, you know, you're gonna get a big payout when the time comes. But this is just advice for jiu-jitsu athletes. If you're not a jiu-jitsu athlete, you can just ignore me, all right? You can just ignore me. But if you are, take the risk. Go out and compete. No one cares if you lose at these free promotions. Just go out, get your reps, and you only need 1 or 2 big wins before you start getting onto the bigger promotions and making some money, whether that's with instructionals, etc. But get your name out there or no one's gonna care about you, and that's the truth of the matter. With that being said, guys, currently there is a, I believe, 40% discount on my Dominate the Hand Fight instructional. This offer lasts for 3 more days. This is only valid from the time that this video was posted till 3 days after, whenever that is. Use code Black Friday to get 40% off at BrandonReedDirects.com/dominate. You'll see it down here, or click one of the links above. I believe it's going to be right here or right here. It'll be one of the two, or you can check out the links in the description below. You can also join my Patreon, where you get a 7-day free trial, or check out any of my other instructionals. I have duck unders, single legs, etc. But yeah, thanks for watching the video.